If there wouldn't be some problems, it wouldn't be an Alliance Guys podcast. So let me do it again. This is a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. I'm your host, Jay Cal. With me is Len. He is making this all possible by giving us access to Zoom. And with us on the show, we also join with Lam, who runs the social media account, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Fans, who covers the NWA and, of course, the affiliates of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. We have All Japan Stan, who, as his name implies, is a fan of All Japan, and as well as the National Wrestling Alliance. And we do have volume now, so that's good. And, guys, I'm really excited because this is the first time that we've done a Zoom chat that is all about the Talk NWA. And, of course, tonight at 6:05, just a short hour from now, the NWA is going to run an encore presentation of the night that Championship Wrestling from Hollywood took the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship to the People's Republic of China. Now, I was actually at that event, and it was an exciting night for wrestling. It was a historic night for wrestling. That's why I was there. Of course, the matches had several matches that Championship Wrestling from Hollywood aired. I do believe that this was already released once from the NWA as part of the 10 pounds of gold package. But I think it's pretty cool that they're going to showcase that match in China, because up until that point, that was the biggest moment in the NWA for Billy Corgan's vision of the NWA. Stan, what do you think about this show showcasing for the match from 2 years ago?
Well, it's about time, because since the NWA pretty much started back up, if you're trying to get back into it again, you will only think that the title's been defended at the studio.
Yeah.
You really don't know how many times Nick Aldis defended the title, so I think it's a little more exposure for the company, and maybe based off of this, they will show more title defenses that was going on during the new ownership.
Lam, you're a big fan of the NWA and of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. What were your thoughts on this match taking place?
It was interesting to see how Chinese people who are not familiar with wrestling at all react to that. I mean, you were there, and you said that the fans were really into it.
Yeah, and as we've had Dave Marquez on a few podcasts that never made it to air, but one thing that he kept pushing is that not only did the people not understand, the fans in attendance, but on a production aspect, they didn't really understand how to shoot pro wrestling. So a lot of what you see is unfortunately their version of the story, but in terms of just where you put the fans, they didn't want to have fans really close to ringside, which in the United States, I mean, that's the premier place to sit, is in the ringside area. So it really changes the dynamic when the fans aren't that close. Now, they were by the entranceway, which looked great coming on TV, but then when you are watching the show, and you guys will see tonight if you watch at 6:05 on the YouTube channel for the NWA, you don't really see a lot of people ringside. And just trying to connect with the fan base, again, they're not used to pro wrestling, so they're not used to the idea of cheering for the good guy, booing for the bad guy. In fact, Marquez even told me in the interview that never aired that the people thought Nick Aldis was an American because they never heard him speak before. So when he started speaking and he had a British accent, they were a little confused, like, why does this American speak with a British accent? It kind of threw him off. Len, what did you think about that match? I mean, I know you weren't in China for it, but I'm pretty sure you've seen that match, whether it was from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood or the first time around on the 10 pounds of gold.
Well, what you see is that sporting events such as wrestling does bridge very different cultures and things. I mean, this was a great aspect to bring something into that, but at the same time, it's still something that can be culturally accepted across many different nations. I mean, you can see the appreciation when you watch shows such as New Japan of just how the fans are just treat them like huge celebrities. I mean, the difference being with Americanized wrestling versus that is it's treated more like a sport. So hopefully we'll be seeing more shows like that in the future in China and other countries as well.
Now in the YouTube chat, because we are streaming this live, not only if you are part of the Zoom channel, you can interact with us, and that access is available. If you're on Twitter, just go ahead and follow that link in. But Roscoe in the chat room has asked, or actually said, that he wanted to see the Barbie Hayden versus Heather Monroe match as well. For that, my friend, you might want to go to the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood YouTube page, because they aired that just in the last 2 weeks or so. And they aired all three matches: the Heather Monroe versus Barbie Hayden, the tag team match, which was the Reno Scum, who are now with Impact Wrestling, versus Watts, who is your Hollywood Heritage Champion, and Alex Chamberlain, who he's been around everywhere. That match is also included. So I would recommend checking that out. One of the things that I noticed while I was there culturally about the pro wrestling is, again, the fans really didn't understand it, but the way that they wanted to latch on, they wanted to connect with those wrestlers. When I was just with the wrestlers during that trip, we would be eating breakfast at the hotel's buffet in the morning, and the looks that the guys like Reno Scum would get, they're covered in tattoos. Lester the Legend has a mohawk. He's probably close to 6'9", 6'10". Both of them are big burly dudes, and you would see that the people would just like walk the other way when they came walking in. Also, Watts, who is close to, like, I think he's like 6'10", 6'9", something like that. When he came in, as an African-American male, you don't see a lot of guys who are African-American in China. So it was definitely a culture shock, but the fans during the event got right behind these guys, and they were chanting "Oi, oi, oi," which, in the United States, we know that's a punk rock thing. It's connects with that punk rock audience, but for a fan base that really doesn't know, they were ready to latch on, and Watts would get the fans to say "Champions forever," and the fans would kind of correlate with that. And it was really interesting sitting there on the side of the ring taking photos and hearing the fans really get into it. I really thought that was interesting. And I for a sport that, again, it's been oversaturated in the United States. Japan knows how to do wrestling. Canada knows how to do wrestling. Mexico knows how to do wrestling. You have all these countries, Germany, the UK. I mean, wrestling is everywhere. But in China, it's still such a new thing that it was really interesting to see some of the fans at the Alliance blog on Instagram. There's a photo of a fan who was in attendance who had his own 10 pounds of gold. In fact, looking even better than mine. And he told Dave Marquez and myself that he paid $500 Chinese. I don't know what the dollar is called there in China, but he spent that amount on that belt. And I think that's just crazy. But it's awesome, but just crazy. I just want to hit these comments real quick that are in the YouTube page, so bear with me, guys. Roscoe said apparently it's on Fight. Roscoe says, a question I have for you guys. Colt Cabana seemed like a perfect opponent for the old NWA to new NWA transition that was available in the market. Do you guys think there's any other guys? So the question is, for the four of you or three of you that are on here, and we'll start with you, Len, was Colt Cabana the best choice to bridge the gap from the old NWA to the new NWA, or is there somebody else you would have liked to seen in that position?
I think Colt Cabana is a great position for that, because he is well known for his talent throughout the indies, as well as his ability to really get the audience into the match. Because even though a lot of people are not very big on the comical style that he may go through, he is a very talented wrestler at the same time. Just him being comical does make people interested in the match. So I think with him being used to that, also being in front of different audiences from around the world, he's a great one to bridge that gap. I mean, granted, a lot of people that watch mainstream wrestling and doesn't know him as well as some of us do that's been watching this, but I think just what he brings really does get people interested, because he's entertaining. And that's what this is all about, is being entertaining to draw an audience.
Lam, I'm going to pose the same question to you, sir. Of all the champions that you are familiar with from the NWA's past, was had in the old NWA guard, is there anybody else you would have liked to have seen in that position?
it's very hard to answer because I think Colt Cabana was the right choice because I don't know how many fans know Jack Stain at the time,
Sure.
well, they know Tombstone because of a 10 pounds of gold series, but Jack Stain would be an option. And the free agent market at the time was difficult because Eli Drake was still signed to Impact Wrestling and was the World Heavyweight Champion back then. There weren't so many champions, I think, who would have been in this position to be that guy. So I think with Colt Cabana, it was the right choice for this transition.
And Stan, let me get the name right. Right choice to bridge the gap from the old NWA to the new NWA.
Yes, I agree also. He's a former champion. I'm sure everybody knows who he is. I wish that when he wrestles in NWA, it would be technical, and then maybe in his other independent bookings, he could do a little comedy gimmick. Um, if he wrestles in NWA again one day, hopefully we get that same Colt Cabana that was in the 7 Levels of Hate. You know, the technical side.
Right.
But other people, there's plenty of other legitimate wrestlers in the United States and around the world if they actually wanted to do partnerships. Nick Aldis and Marty Scurll, of course, that's going to happen one day. Jay Lethal, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Nick Aldis and Kento Miyahara. That them going 1 hour would be off the hook. Plenty of guys in New Japan to give a shot to. More of your well-known top names. Because like it seems like some of the challengers that he was defending against, nobody really knows. You know, but Colt Cabana was the perfect guy to bridge the gap with the old and the new. Couldn't think of nobody else to do that except for Colt.
So the only person that comes to my mind, and I think we lost the live stream. Maybe my internet isn't more powerful enough to handle this, but I'm trying to reconnect as we speak. Again, we'll put the show up later. It's gonna reconnect. Now I know that's more of a championship from the Bruce Tharpe era, of course, in the lineage. But Conway was wrestling in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And of all the names that actually wrestled for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, so he had some wrestle. What's that?
Now you was breaking up on my end.
Some more of the comments is Roscoe thinks that. Did I lose you? Did I lose everybody?
I'm here.
No, we're still here.
Yeah, I think your
we
video
just lost Jay.
was freezing up and you was going in and out.
What do you guys think of
Cameron just went
Sabu
down.
as a potential name that could have represented the NWA in China?
No.
No, actually, no.
Oh, we lost.
This is what happens when everybody's home.
No kidding. Okay, so how do we get this? How do I get this going back up? Oh, I see. Start video. Okay. All right. We should get up in just a second. All right. Well, this has been fun and interesting. Maybe no more live Zoom chats, I guess.
It's fun.
Man, my headphones got all caught up on this cable. This makes for great television, guys.
Yeah. I was getting ready to reply to a statement somebody put on in the chat on YouTube.
Well, I did see that they said that they thought that Sabu would have been an interesting choice, and that's kind of what I was going to ask you guys is what did you think about Sabu?
No way.
Yeah. Sabu, in a short time that he did hold the NWA title and he did pursue Steve Corino for the NWA World title, I don't think he is what you'd expect or want to represent your National Wrestling Alliance. And
No.
in that arena or in pay-per-views at the NWA did, but they never really got to see it as a big environment as it was in China that night. And I also think that with the NWA, and it's changing the way that business is done for wrestling or any kind of pro sport. So it'll be interesting to see what the NWA becomes or how it changes through the course of this nation dealing with the pandemic, the COVID-19. But I think what we'll see in the future, and I think what the plan was for the NWA is to do more of these smaller arena shows. The Crockett Cup 2020 was into most of these shows. What do you think the difference is between being in the larger arenas or being in the Georgia broadcasting studios?
The smaller venues feel a little bit more intimate, a little bit more personal. Larger crowds, it just feel like I'm just another person in the seat. I can get a better reaction from the talent, whether it's cheering or booing, in a small setting. I don't know. It feels like I'm important in a smaller venue.
So do you prefer being in the smaller venue then?
Yes.
Yeah. Lamb, you've only been able to watch, from across the ocean in Germany. What are your thoughts on the bigger venues versus the more intimate venue?
Sorry, I didn't listen too much of a live stream right now because your internet was buggy a little bit. The question is, small venue or bigger venue? Okay, now it's
It seems like the path that they were on were to do their pay-per-views in these larger arenas as opposed to studio. As a fan I think we lost Lamb, so I'll pose the same question to you, Len. What did you think? I mean, you were there with me in Charlotte to see the larger arena versus the smaller venue. What did you find more appealing as a fan?
I find the smaller arenas a lot more appealing with the venues because it's more of an intimate feeling. With the larger ones, it's still excitement from the crowd and everything such as that. But I think when you have the smaller venues, it just gives it a lot more excitement and a lot more energy that you get to see. Plus, you feel a lot closer with what's going on around you because these large events are very breathtaking and enjoyable to be at. But sometimes the smaller ones just make it just as great.
So would it be in your opinion that the NWA should try to find a balance between continually running in the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studio, the NWA Arena, and continue to explore options with the smaller arena shows?
Well, most definitely. I think they could do super shows where they'd have a larger venue, such as things like, let's say, like a basketball arena for like NBA teams and things such as that. They can do a lot of the smaller arenas for basically either just like the studio shows or even just some type of live house show event, so to speak. That way you can get a lot more fan interaction and have a lot more closeness, because the biggest thing is if the fan feels a part of the show, they are more than likely going to be a reoccurring attendee for each of these shows and things such as that. When you have the larger venues and make it such as a super show, you'll get the not so casual fan coming into it, which might also spark more interest in people coming back for a reoccurring show when the smaller ones come around too.
I always kind of go back to a couple of generations ago, NWA. I'm talking about the Bob Trobich era, where Dave Marquez had a lot of flexibility to run in the larger arenas. I mean, he kicked off his arena tour by starting off at the Orleans Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, the same place that Ring of Honor has ran a couple of times, and then progressed throughout the Southton or Phoenix area. They were still shooting their show at the time the NWA Pro now. What I would like to see, though, is these larger venue shows continue to happen. The best out of it. Joining us from Australia, he mentions, what did you think of the arena Aldis versus David Starr was in? It seemed very small to me. That happened at I believe that was IPW UK. And yeah, that was the name escapes me right now of that venue, but that was a smaller venue, and I think it was actually used for like stand-up comedy. And yeah, it was a smaller venue, but I think it was very intimate. And I think if you were a fan of wrestling, it'd be fun to be in that crowd. I don't think it was the best venue to showcase the World's Heavyweight Championship, but one of the best things about having Nick Aldis defending that title is that he was defending that title prior to NWA Power. He was defending that title everywhere. So he had at one point more defenses in the UK than he actually did in the United States. And he obviously he comes from the UK. He comes from Kingland country in England, but I mean he lives in the United States. So for him to have as many opportunities to defend that title, I think it was pretty cool. And sorry, I saw that the camera changed there a little bit. I guess I'm being spotlighted, so that works for me. I'm not shy of a camera. Hi, everybody. But I do think that the NWA, we're, like I said, we're in this interesting time in the world where we don't know what's going to happen next. I do applaud the efforts of the National Wrestling Alliance to try to continue to showcase its content in any way they can. I know they've repackaged a few 10 Pounds of Gold episodes. I know that they're trying to continue to create content. Unfortunately, like they have very little capacity to keep creating new videos. And my discussions in the past with David Marquez made it sound like there wasn't really any interest to go into the Marquez vault, if you will, to showcase more of the past NWA matches, world title matches. But I think you need to celebrate what Dave Lagana and Billy Corgan are doing with the brand in an effort to continue to produce content every Tuesday at 6:05. Sorry, guys. I'm a little disappointed we're having so many technical snafus today, but it was bound to happen. All Japan Stan, I know that you have a few things on your mind. What would you like to talk about as the show is?
I think that the NWA should, okay, you run your shows in Georgia, but I think they should try to go around to different states, smaller venue, and see what kind of business they can attract. And then the world title matches should be in a little larger venue to make it seem like this title is real important. It's too big. This title match is too big. We have to put it in a bigger venue and make it feel important. That's what I think they should do. Will they do it? Who knows? The other titles, defend them, smaller venue. But I don't think right now they should try to run weekly shows in these huge arenas. It's not going to work. Smaller venues, you get most likely it's going to be an instant sellout since it's a small venue. Even going to Cork and Hall in Japan, I think it holds about 2,000 people. Small venue, up and close. You get that personal feeling, more intimate setting, and I think that's what they should go with. Don't try to, go 30, 40,000 people in 5 to 10 years. Keep it small. Make yourself different. World title matches should be maybe a little bit larger. Of course, ECW Arena will be one. See how much business they can do over there. But I think it might get to the point where doing it every single week in the studio, I don't know if it will get a little stale or not. If they just keep it like that, but I think one day they're going to have to try to tour just to test it out and see if there's like a real interest in the company, because everybody in Atlanta, the surrounding area, they're gonna be there. But the real test is, okay, if we take this to New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, California, LA, will we get that same attention, that same group of people? And when everything gets back to normal, I think they should go ahead and try it out.
For one, I think I agree with you for certain on that. The world title has always meant so much in that region of the country, North Carolina, Atlanta, I guess I should say Georgia, and that the whole Mid-Atlantic region. I think the NWA World's title, that domed globe, that 10 pounds of gold, Adam Pearce called her Sweet Charlotte. I really felt that title meant a lot to that area. And I would like to, commend Dave Marquez, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and that group who efforted to make that title mean something out here on the West Coast, which I really think they did. In terms of running these shows, I really think that going forward that they should effort to run these in different venues. Of course, I think they're going to continue to run in Georgia for TV because, that's their home. I think that makes a lot of sense. But putting on these matches across the country, why can't we have Nick Aldis defend that title in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood? Why can't we have, Nick Aldis defend that title in Ring of Honor? And use NWA Power to showcase, your national championship or your TV title. There's a lot of great talent involved with the NWA, like Zicky Dice and Aaron Stevens, the shooter. And of course, there's a lot of guys who, Eli Drake and James Storm, the tag team champions. It's been so long since we've had a fresh episode of Power. I think people tend to forget how much great quality, talent was associated with the NWA.
Right.
And I agree. I think they should try to run these larger venues, and I think maybe they should hold the NWA World Title for more meaningful matches. Len, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree about that. I mean, the idea I thought would be great was if they would go touring different areas and basically do similar to what Ring of Honor would do, which is go to an area, record 4 or 5 episodes, and then go to another area, record 4 or 5 episodes. I thought whenever they first started talking about going live with TV for the NWA, that's kind of the similar thing they would do. Go to Greensboro, they'd go to Concord or Charlotte, they'd go down to Atlanta, they'd just cover the territory areas like from Jim Crocker Promotions. I mean, they could even possibly do a nostalgia tour and just go to each territory they have and just go to each venue that was a big thing. They could go to Texas. They could film similar to what like Major League Wrestling has been doing, which is they go to specific areas like Miami, Texas, Chicago, Philadelphia, and just record a string of shows one after the other and just broadcast them that way, than have, as Stan was saying, and have like major events for the title to be recorded, such as like an arena show. Back in the day, if you remember, with even the WWF, Hogan didn't defend the show on Superstars of Wrestling every week. You barely seen Hogan unless it was a video package. You would see mostly the Intercontinental title, which was designed to be similar to a TV title where you would see it weekly or every so often, as opposed to having the world title on the show every single week. Because I think that is what saturated a lot of what's happened with people demanding more and more of the world title. We need to go back to where the world title is treated as it's something special, pay-per-view quality, as opposed to this title has to be on the show every week, because that makes other titles, such as you're seeing with the U.S. title. Who's the U.S. champion right now in WWE? I can't think of who it is. Intercontinental champion. You don't see those titles the way they used to. They've just really been taken down a notch, because the world title, you see it every week. That's what we need to get things back to, so that way there's more prestige for the belts. And going back to, like I said, with MLW, they have the openweight title with Alexander Hammerstone's carrying it right now. He defends that on their pay-per-views, and the world title is not defended every week that Jacob Fatu has. I mean, it just shows you those titles are held high and prestigious, as opposed to we got to have them every week because they got to be here every week.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think there is something to be said. I mean, we all have heard those stories about Ric Flair defending that title, right, day in and day out, 360 days a year, 300 days a year, whatever it was, and sometimes doing 2 shows in one night. But if you go back and you watch some of those, Jim Crockett Promotions 605, Saturday nights, Flair wasn't on every show. Flair didn't defend the title on every show. And to your point, Len, yeah, I mean, a lot of times we would just get a Horseman promo, or maybe Arn or Tully would wrestle, but not always Flair, not always a world title match. And as much as I love seeing Aldis defend that title everywhere, I think it does lose some of its cachet, some of its gravitas if we see it every week. And I also would like to say, and I know this isn't a popular opinion, but I don't need to see Ricky Morton challenging for that title. I don't need to see, guys of a lower, and I'm not trying to say specifically Ricky Morton, but, a guy who's known for tag team wrestling, who only tag team wrestles on the show, shouldn't be getting a shot at the world's title. A guy who is not entirely let me rephrase what I'm about
I get
to
what
say.
you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying, Stan.
Exactly.
The world title shot has to be earned.
Correct.
I think they should do something similar to AEW, have a ranking system. Okay, this guy won a certain amount of matches. He gets the title shot. It's not that hard. I have to go back to All Japan Pro Wrestling. The champion defends the title once a month. They have a tournament, I think sometimes in the summer, every year. One of the tournament gets a title shot at, the following January. It's not that hard, but just having the world, okay. Hey, I don't know. When I look at Nick Aldis, all his his title defenses, somebody could say, okay, he defended the title so many times. Okay, but it really don't matter how many times he defends the title, because most of them are just regular independent guys. Nobody knows who they are. I want legitimate threats to the title, or make it seem that way. And that's what they do in Japan. There's no any old person, oh, I get the title shot. I was kind of mad when Ellsworth had the title shot. I'm like, what is going on here? I'm sorry, but it's like a legitimate, it's like a legitimate threat. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't know who's going to win. I need to watch this show. I need to actually fly and go watch this match. I don't know who's going to win. But we all know Ellsworth wasn't going to win the title. We all know most of these guys on the indie circuit is not winning the title based on what we're watching on Power. The storylines and everything is all mixed up.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point, and I want to speak to that because in reality, right, I was there in China to see Colt Cabana versus Nick Aldis, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. I had no idea Nick Aldis was going to win the match or if Colt Cabana was going to win the match.
Right.
When I jumped on that plane, it was because it was a historic match. Colt Cabana is a two-time former champion, right, and he never got his just due with the old NWA. And then you have someone the caliber of Nick Aldis who, you know what you have with Nick. He's going to cut an excellent promo. His in-ring work is pretty good, not great, pretty good, but his promo was so fire and so intriguing. And I think sometimes that's wasted, perhaps with a Ricky Morton or, you know. We were there at the NWA Power TV taping. We saw the match between him and Tim Storm. I don't think anybody for 1 minute thought that Tim Storm was going to win the title. With that being said, that doesn't mean I don't want Tim Storm to challenge for it, but I want to see the build. I want to see the storyline. That's what made 10 Pounds of Gold so interesting, is that they had these great promos. The whole lead up to All In between Cody and Nick was so solid. And I didn't know at All In if Cody was going to win that title. I didn't know if Aldis was going to win that title, which made it must-see TV. And, you know, there's debates on the Facebook forums for the NWA, and people are like, well, who is the better champion, Adam Pearce or Nick Aldis? The thing I'll say about Adam Pearce is every time he went out there, I didn't know it was going to happen. I got worked so many times, and that's a beautiful thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. Damian Wayne, his feud with Adam Pearce in Pearce's first reign as champion out in Virginia, I mean, that thing, every time they locked up, I didn't know who was going to walk out as champion. Pearce did such a good job of convincing the audience, the fan base, that his title was in peril almost in every defense. And I think that really shows you maybe the difference between the two. Now, with the right opponent, Nick Aldis and, say, Marty Scurll, Marty's been able to get that out of Nick, and which is kind of confusing because on paper, Aldis is the guy. There's no way that Marty could even compete. But somehow, some way, Marty connects with Nick Aldis in a way that makes me think that Nick could lose that title. When I watch Nick Aldis wrestle, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's why Ric Flair was such a great champion, because Rick always could play. He's getting his butt kicked in every match. That's why the territory system was so great. You would have, like, I'll just use Anarchy, for example. Anarchy heavyweight champion. That's the guy that's the best guy in Anarchy. Then you have the world champion come in, and who's he going to challenge? He's going to challenge the top guy, which is the heavyweight champion. If we do the same system, like let's say Marty's the Ring of Honor champion, well, that's the reason why Nick should challenge the heavyweight champion. Right. The reason why Nick and Marty was so great is they knew how to play off each other. Rick would go into an area and be like, I'm getting my butt kicked, and just as Adam did. I've seen Phil Shatter, Blue Demon Jr., and Adam Pearce in NWA New Beginnings back at the NWA Legends Fan Fest, and I had no clue that Adam was going to win the title. That was an amazing show. And I mean, it's just stuff like that when you go in seeing three top contenders. I mean, Phil Shatter, back when he was in the NWA, was incredible. I mean, that guy carried that title with prestige. He looked like a badass. He fought in the ring the way you would think that a champion would, and carried himself. And when you saw him in that match, I literally thought he was going to win the title. When Adam pulled it off, you're like, wow, that's the kind of matches people love to go see. Like Stan was just mentioning, when you see some of these contenders, you're just like, why would this guy be contending for the title? Back when they had these matches, those guys contending, it was outstanding.
Right.
Yeah, and to add to that, I hope they will stop it, because it goes back to Ellsworth Morton. It gives the world title this David Arquette type of feel. It would have been better if Nick didn't defend the title against Ellsworth. Now you can play it to where, oh, Aldis is scared to defend the title and, come off as a good heel. He won't defend the title, you know, until there's a good contender. It's like he's forced to defend it now, you know? It's
Right.
just I hope they just don't just start dishing out title shots just to get people to tune in to watch a world title. That's going to take the prestige out of it. It's going to
Agreed.
take the importance out of it. All they got to do is take a page out of Japan's book. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and I think to your point, taking that page out of Japan's book, I mean, there's 4 weeks of television. When they tape Power, they literally tape for 4 weeks at a time each night, right? Or sometimes. Well, it's a good thing we're not live then.
I just enabled the waiting room again. I turned it off for a moment there.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez. Well, it's a good thing we're not live, and I can easily edit that out.
Yeah.
Good Lord, man.
Wow.
Public password.
Mr. Len, when we do this again, let's we won't
Twitter
do it live.
DM password.
Yeah, we won't do it live, and we'll just holy crap, man. Where do we go from here?
I literally turned off the waiting room because I had it on the entire time, thinking, well, nobody's joined up. I'll go ahead and turn that off because maybe that's taking up bandwidth. And that popped up. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he must have got the password from the front of the YouTube.
Oh, man. Okay, so let me finish my thought, and then we'll end this train wreck. And I will post this up. I will edit that part out. Len, we'll talk later if maybe you could, like, Dropbox that to me or something. But
yes, I'll send you the link.
Holy cow. Okay, so my point was going to be, yes, there's 4 weeks of television on NWA Power. There's an opportunity to show the NWA World Heavyweight Championship once a month. And of course, if you're doing pay-per-views every month, then maybe you don't even use the world title on the TV show. Maybe everything leads up to that. Maybe Aldis is only there to cut promos, or maybe worked in tag team matches just to further escalate a feud, where that time slot could be dedicated to showcasing your other champions, the tag champions, the women's champion. We haven't even mentioned Thunder Rosa on this podcast today. But Aaron Stevens or Zicky Dice, use that time efficiently to promote that. And then all the while Nick Aldis is, gallivanting the across the globe, defending in Ring of Honor, use that as an opportunity to showcase the title. Maybe he's in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Use that opportunity to showcase that title. And those matches, right? Those matches could still be released on a 10 pounds of gold to accompany what they're already doing with NWA Power. Those matches could still be showcased on, the NWA format, the NWA TV, and it wouldn't take away from anything. And I think that's where their best use of time would come into play. But gentlemen, we want to end the show now, even though we're out of time. We will try this again in the future, but in a much different format, because today just didn't work the way we wanted it to. But I do want to thank those of you who are watching. I also want to thank Lam from Germany for joining us. I want to thank All Japan Stan for his insight, plus his knowledge of the Japanese wrestling community. And I also want to thank Len for making this all possible. You guys, if you want to follow The Alliance, you could do so at The Alliance Blog, and that's on all social medias. That's on Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, and all that good stuff. And, until then, hey, guys, we're going to see you at the matches. Y'all have a good night now. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Oh, this was cool.